Welcome to the Changing Lives podcast, where we explore emotional, mental, and behavioral health and tools that help us heal from the inside out. I'm Shannon Winters, therapist, emotional wellness educator, and founder of Changing Lives Incorporated companies and Inside Out for Everyone nonprofit. Inside Out for Everyone nonprofit supports emotional, mental, and behavioral health. Most people think communication is about talking. It's not. It's about connection. It's about emotional awareness. It's about social awareness. And it's about timing. Timing is everything. And today, Denis and I are going to bring you the foundation of the 3 pillars of communication, the framework we built together over the years. Denis used to teach these concepts with me long before Changing Lives counseling was a thing. He helped me shape the emotional foundation behind the 3 pillars. So today, he is here with me to revisit them and to share his perspective. Denis, I'm glad you're here. Okay, let's dive in. The first of the pillars that I want to talk about is what I now call an emotional check-in. This is like a temperature gauge to see where each other is at when you're coming home and you've been all day at work. This check-in is to see where each other is at. It's a thermometer, if you will, just to see what the emotional climate is of each person. There's a tool that I like to use with newcomers, and then I want to get Denis's perspective on the check-ins. So the tool I like to use for an emotional check-in is real simple. You just pick up your hand and you're going to label each finger an emotion. We're going to have a couple difficult emotions, maybe an indifferent, like overwhelmed or anxious, and then a couple good ones that we're going to end on because we want to end on the positive notes. Let's start with angry, sadness, frustrated, happy, peaceful. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most, 1 being not at all, and 3 somewhere in the middle, where are you in general in your day with angry?
Now, the first one is?
Anger.
Okay. I'm going to do a 2 or 3. I've had kind of a crummy day, and I'm a little disappointed because of it, so I'm a little bit on the angry side. Not livid, not in rage. I'm just not real happy.
How about sadness?
Sad, let's go a 3 or 4 because, again, my day didn't go well, so I'm a little sad that I didn't finish my day on a real positive note.
Got it. Let's go with frustration.
Frustration is going to be a 2 because I'm very frustrated. I had to work with a bunch of really irritating people today that just sent me into a spin. So I'm very frustrated.
Okay. How about happy?
Again, 2. When I'm frustrated and a little bit angry, I can't be very happy.
Okay. And the last one, peaceful.
Oh, peaceful. We'll pull a 4 on that because it's all going to be okay. That I know. There'll be other days, and some are going to be good, some are going to be bad. So I'm usually generally a peaceful person.
Excellent. You did a really good job with just answering the 1 out of 5 and the why. That's where we stop with our check-ins. We are not going into conflict resolution. We're not trying to start conversation. We are strictly checking in so that we can see where each other is at. On that emotional level, it helps us to understand some things like Denis is not in a great mood right now. That's what I can learn from this check-in. If I have a difficult something to talk about, like I need to spend money on medicine and we haven't budgeted for that money, I'm not going to have that conversation right now because he's out of sorts. He's higher on the scale than he normally would be. So I'm going to wait and have that conversation. That's what the thermometer tells me when I check in with him. If it's something that needs intention, actually our rule of thumb that we've developed over the years, if it's an emergency, if it's going to cost you a bunch of money, if it's going to cost you your life or somebody else their life, if we need to go to the ER, then those conversations you have to have in the moment. You can't put them off. If it is not one of those things, if it is not an emergent situation, you can put it off and utilize pillar number 3, which we'll get to, conflict resolution, to solve any problems that may need to be solved. The check-in is strictly for a check-in. So if we're going to spend the evening together being intimate and having a nice time, or if we're going to go into our quiet time and grab a book or a TV show or a game that we play and do something separately. If somebody is scoring high, it's going to be important to ask them, do you want to talk now? It's going to be important to ask the question rather than just dumping whatever seems simple in the moment on them. What the check-ins do is they stabilize your nervous system and keep you from getting overactivated and create an emotional predictability so we know what to expect from one another. That is the check-in pillar. Let's move on to the second pillar. This is actually my favorite pillar. It's the emotional intimacy pillar. It's about intentional connection. With that being said, if we're intentionally connecting, if we're making time to hang out and connect, we should not be bringing hard conversations to that space. It's not a good time to resolve conflicts. That will come after we have built and connected on the emotional intimacy pillar. So I kind of like to look at this one as like a dating situation where you're taking yourself away from the home, you're taking yourself away from the kids, away from the responsibilities of the home, just to connect with your person. If we don't do this, if we don't have the connecting parts in play for our relationship, then resolving conflict is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be extremely difficult because that emotional connection, that emotional intimacy isn't there. When two people go and try to solve a conflict without that connection, it can be a tough one. So this emotional intimacy pillar is incredibly important because we have to be really intentional with getting that time in and not having conflict and not solving problems, just connecting. Every couple needs to work on this. I know some of you will have kids and you have your kids in sports or other extracurricular activities, and it may be difficult for you to plan this emotional intimacy time for just you and your partner. But what I'm going to suggest is that you make it a priority and that you find time to connect, just the two of you, even if you're just learning something new about each other and actually intentionally trying to learn something new about each other and doing new things together, being curious together, exploring together, whatever the connecting looks like for you, it's going to be important to build that into your schedule, ideally at least a couple hours a week. I would suggest a whole lot more than that, but let's just start there. Let's just call it 2 hours a week when the two of you can come together, find the babysitter, and get away from the home and do something together. What do you have to say about this emotional intimacy pillar?
Well, personally, it's easy if you think about it, because you're talking about communication between partners, and the emotional intimacy is not to be deep problems. So simple. Let me talk to you about something that I know you love, that you enjoy, and you do well, and get that conversation started. Nothing hard, nothing really committal, just a very open, easy talk about a hobby, a friend, a plan you have, and let it roll from there. If it goes somewhere, fine. If not, you can go to some other subject. Just needs to be easy.
Yes. One of the things that I've always enjoyed that you bring to our emotional intimacy pillar when you're talking about things is the listen to understand, the listen without trying to fix or insert yourself into a problem you weren't asked help for. And you have gotten really good at that over the years of listening to understand. Why don't you explain from a male perspective what that looks like for you?
Everybody has a problem with that. I even at one time had a placard in my office that said, listen to learn or listen to understand. Don't listen to react. Most people, when they hear somebody talking to them, I don't care if this is your spouse or a male, female friend, as soon as you hear words that you can react to, you do that, you react. And more than likely, the person on the other end just wants to be understood. They want you to listen to what they have to say. Reaction can come later, and I've had to learn to do that. Sometimes you just got to bite your tongue, even though you've got something to say, and go, listen to understand, listen to learn. This is not a reaction thing. And if they want your reaction when they're done talking, that's important. When they're done talking, then they may go, what do you think about that? There's your segue. Now I can say what I was thinking. Hard, because I always want to go, you've got to want to know what I'm thinking about that. And no, not really. They want to be listened to and understood. Listen to understand.
Yes. A couple concepts that I think are important also for the emotional intimacy pillar is just being present without rushing or being impatient or like you got to go somewhere. As a counselor over the years, I have found that that is something that really sticks with people when they feel like you are fully present with them and not somewhere else in some other situation. The listen to understand, that's a primary tool that we want to learn. And like Dennis said, we all probably need to learn to listen to understand or allow somebody to share their thoughts and feelings without fear, without judging them. That's a big deal. Most people get defensive because they feel like they're being judged in that moment. So allowing them to be vulnerable without judging them makes such a safe place. Choosing conversations that build connection and not conflict. Choosing conversations that build connection is what this emotional intimacy pillar is for. It is the emotional glue of the relationship, and without it, we are not going to do well when it comes time to solve our differences, our problems, our conflicts, however you want to look at it. It's going to be difficult if we don't allow the emotional intimacy to grow so that both of us can feel safe enough to be curious about each other and work with one another in a non-judgmental, very intentional way. I want to connect with you. When can we connect? Very intentional words, very intentional conversations that we should be having in this emotional intimacy pillar. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah. Let me give you a no-no. When whoever you're talking to, it can even be a guy friend for me, a girlfriend for Shannon, or your spouse or partner. When something is said, don't ever use the term, that's a stupid idea, or that's a dumb way to think. That just shuts it right away. I do that, and she goes, he doesn't care what I'm saying. He's not interested in me. He's not interested in what I have to say. I found it works so much better. That's an interesting concept. Let me think about that. Or interesting idea. I wouldn't have thought about that. Give me some time to think about that. See, there's hope. They're going, oh, he hears what I'm saying and doesn't necessarily agree with it, but it's making him want to go think. Now, maybe it really doesn't, but that's okay. I'm encouraging, she mentioned a minute ago about just shutting down. There were times when she would relate ideas and I'd go, that's a dumb idea. Well, shut down. I'm done talking. You can just go somewhere else. It doesn't work.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's a great segue into pillar number 3, where this is the root of breaking patterns or not allowing patterns into the relationship. Let me explain that. Pillar number 3 is the conflict resolution pillar. It is about rectifying or solving our problems. Some people prefer the term solving our conflicts. I like to simplify it even more and just go, we have a difference of opinion from our perceptions, which is just being in the same room together, because Dennis thinks very differently than I do. That's across the board, guys. All of us have different perceptions. That's where conflict comes from. He thinks about things very differently than I think about things, and what I perceive in a situation, he perceives it differently 9 times out of 10. This conflict resolution program, this pillar number 3, really allows us to break through any stuck areas we may have where we're not seeing eye to eye and we are seeing things very different. The tool that we're going to share with you for conflict resolution will help you get through the problem so that you're not stuck in it, so that it doesn't become a cycle and a pattern that continues to revisit your relationship. For example, it's going to be the same problem over and over again if you don't stop and solve the problem. It will revisit, it will stay there, it will not go away, it will wreak havoc on your relationship. So most conflict becomes destructive because people are trying to solve before they've even thought about things. I know there's some of us that like to say, man, when there's a problem, I need to solve it right now, right now, right now. And I used to be one of those people until I realized my decisions are very different when I am angry in a reactive situation because somebody, maybe my husband, has said or done something that pisses me off. And I act that way, and my solutions act that way when I am in the moment. If I take a cool down period, even if it's 30 minutes, and I go into my own head and go, girl, you need to calm down. What's really bugging you? And key thing to do in this cool down period is to start thinking about, A, how do I want to describe the problem? How do I feel about it? What can I do about it without asking someone else to do it for me? So within my control, what are my solutions? And then once I have some of those solutions, I'm going to revisit the conflict with the person I'm in conflict with, because now I'm going to approach them with, here's what I can do about the problem. And guys, who doesn't want to be approached that way in a conflict? It beats the heck out of going, this problem, do you see this problem, this problem? And when we stay focused on the problem, we don't get anywhere. We're just creating those patterns I talked about. We're not solving, we're creating a pattern where the same problem is going to come back. So can you speak a little bit into this pillar number 3, conflict resolution, and give us your thoughts?
Well, as you said, conflicts are generally just a different perception. And I don't think people appreciate a different perception. I would hate to be married to somebody that always thought exactly the same as I do, because so many ideas come from her that I would never have thought of. Resources, ways to do things that I would never have even tried that wind up working out good. It's just a book of resource that makes me a better person. Not all of them do, but again, you listen to understand, listen to learn. I can take her ideas that somebody would think is a conflict and go, let me think about that. That's interesting. Instead of, remember, that's a stupid idea. I would never do it that way. And in 24 hours, I would come up and go, I'm going to try that. That's not as dumb as I thought. There it is. I just learned something new, made me a better person. So to me, it's not always a conflict. It's just a different idea, different perception. Now, there can be direct conflicts. Generally, I welcome that. I would not want a business with yes men. I would hire somebody that think completely different than me, because look what I'm going to learn and how much better the business would be because of different perceptions.
Yes, I like that. Let me roll out the tool that Dennis and I have actually used over the course of our marriage, and that I use in counseling for people, for couples, for families, and it's even a good personal check-in model. First, it's a platform to write it down, which affords you the time to take the break and the cool down without worrying about forgetting it and not coming back to it. So we also talked about we have 2 different perceptions, and that's where the conflict starts a lot of times, is just in the way we're thinking about things and how we're thinking about them differently. So it's important to go, hey, you take this tool and you write down your perception of the problem. I'm going to do the same thing, and then let's put it in a public place or switch notes, if you will, so that we can see how each other is thinking about the problem. We may have 2 separate problems. It is very possible we could have 2 completely different problems, which is fine, but we're only going to work through one at a time effectively. So start somewhere. Start with one of them. Take your cool down. Think about the problem. Think about how you feel and fill in your parts on the tool. Fill in how you feel in your solution pieces and what you can do. to solve the problem that you're both looking at, which, by the way, if you're both focused on the same problem, your solutions are going to match. They're going to look similar. It'll be real easy to come to a compromise when you are using this tool and you're focused on one problem at a time. What's also imperative about this is that you make intentional time somewhere in a safe place in your home. For us, it may be a kitchen table. Sometimes it's in the living room. And sometimes Dennis will start and go, check your tones. Are we ready to have this conversation? Can we do this nicely? Can we be kind to one another as we go into talking about this conflict? So I like to throw out, especially to my lady friends, the nonverbals count too. Rolling your eyes or throwing your head back or whatever those nonverbal tones are. We have to be mindful of those tones because they set off a defensive reaction, regardless of who is receiving them. 9 times out of 10, unless you're a trained professional, a tone is going to set your defenses off. So I like to say, set a time, a weekly time, kind of like the emotional intimacy, where we got to be intentional about getting a couple hours in for emotional intimacy. I like to say the same thing about conflict resolution, but here's the good thing. An hour or under in a week. We should get really good about resolving our conflicts quickly, because I don't want you in conflict every day. Your nervous system is activated every day and on overdrive if you're in conflict every day. We really need the right timing on our conflict resolution. And we need the common goal of connection after conflict. So many people view conflict as a negative thing. Conflict can be your greatest point of connection. When you see you can solve your different thinking and your differences with your partner, that feels great. That's intimacy right there. That's emotional intimacy right there. When we get all the way through a difference of opinion and find that solution, that feels really good. So we go from identifying a problem in a sentence or two, how we feel about it, making sure we're on the same page, on the same problem. Then we go into solutions, we revisit, and we have the solution talk. We're not going to keep talking about the problem. We are going to talk about the solutions within our control that we can do for the one problem that we're looking at together. That's the conflict resolution tool. Do you have anything to add to any of that?
It's important when you see things written down instead of just verbally orating them. It looks different and it looks a little simpler, and it's easier to match up the differences in perception and come to the conclusion of what you need to do.
Agreed. Conflict resolution isn't about winning a fight, an argument, a problem. It's about returning to connection so that we can get back to emotional intimacy, pillar number 2, and connecting again. Why? Again, the circle is this. If we are connected emotionally and we go into conflict resolution and use this tool so that we're on the same page and we follow through and get to solving our problem, we're back to connection. There's your full circle. We're back to connection. It's about repairing instead of reacting. When both people take time to think and breathe and self-regulate, before having a hard conversation, the conversation becomes much more productive as opposed to explosive or ongoing because we don't get to the soul. That's the 3 pillars of communication. We actually have this on our website, and we're happy to share it with people. We sell a workbook that you can work through on your own, or you can buy the workbook and come in and have sessions with me or one of my coaches, and we can go through this with you and get to the root and really teach this concept that would help improve all your relationships. If you have a family with kids, it helps with your kids. If you can learn this style of communication and work it out with them and have them work it out with you. And believe me, we want to teach our kids how to resolve conflicts because they don't know unless we teach them. So that's it. In closing, I'm Shannon Winters. I'm a therapist. I thank you for joining us today. I'm part of the Changing Lives brand that has 3 different companies. This is a podcast that is here for your emotional, mental, and behavioral health. And if you've enjoyed this, if you've gotten anything out of this, we'd love to ask you to join us again. We'd like to see you again, actually. And also, you could follow us on social media. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have them all, and they're all under Changing Lives Incorporated. ChangingLivesInc.com is the website for Changing Lives Incorporated. Any feedback you want to give us, we'll take it. We'd love to hear from you. That being said, my hope is that you feel love, that you take care of your heart, that you honor your story, and remember, emotional wellness grows one honest moment at a time, and we've got to be very intentional about these things. Have a nice day.